Soft life also requires us to do the hard things. For you to flourish in the new, you have to let go of the old. Change or shift is accompanied by uncomfortability and growing pains. If we're going to fulfill purpose, if we are going to become who we want to become, we have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to a new episode of the Dreams, Money, Purpose podcast. I am your host, Norma. I'm excited for this episode because it's so appropriate for this time of the year. I know that it's such a timely message for someone. With the conversations I've been having with some of my friends and just looking at the climate that we're in, most people are in this phase of transition, in a phase of elevation, in a phase of coming to be who they are. And I know that for so many people, it's a time to flip the page. It's a time to transition into the new, or perhaps even transition out of what you've been in. So you may be in this season as well where you need to flip the page. It's time to break out of that prison of the same old, the cycle of the same thing, where it's like year in, year out, it's the same thing, and enter into what you are ready for, breaking out of that comfortability of what you've known for so long, what you've been happy to do for so long. But actually, I think the season that you've been in has prepared you for what is next. The season that you're transitioning out of has prepared you, has equipped you, and has given you all that you need to succeed in this new season. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 6 keys and steps that you are going to need to implement in your new season as you flip the page and as you fly out of the cocoon. As I was preparing for this episode, I was just thinking so much about the butterfly, and it intrigues me how, the butterfly, if you were paying attention in your science class, the butterfly has so many different stages, right? Before it becomes a butterfly, it starts as the egg, transitions into caterpillar phase, and then moves on to the pupa stage where it's in this little cocoon, and then eventually breaks out of that cocoon to fly out of it, and is the beautiful butterfly that we can now see and love on its beauty. And so for so many people, I believe that you are in that season of breaking out of that cocoon, right? Of what you've known, of what you've been doing, of what you've been comfortable in. So for a season, or in this previous page or the page you're in right now, there's been comfortability, there's been growth, elevation, there's been transition that has taken place in who you are, in what you've been doing. In the same way, going back to the butterfly example, it gets to a phase where the cocoon that you were once in, or the environment that you're once in, is no longer conducive for your next season. In one season, that cocoon is comfortable, it is necessary, it's conducive for your growth, for your elevation, for your transformation. But you've gotten to the stage where it's now time to burst out of that cocoon, and it's time for you to go forth and do the next season. It's time for you to flip that page. So I'm going to go into step 1 of how you are going to transition successfully in that season of transitioning, or if you are in that phase where you're ready to flip the page, or you've just entered into it. So this is going to be 6 key steps that you're going to need for this season. So for so many of you, you know that you've outgrown your current season, and you know that you're ready for the new, you're ready for the next chapter of your life. And this season, for some, it was where you needed to be because it was a time of preparation, of growing. It was a time of transformation. As human beings, we know when you're ready for the next because you're agitated within yourself, you're no longer comfortable, you are almost irritable because you're like, I'm ready for the new, I'm ready to break out, I'm ready to enter into that next phase. But as you transition, there has to be a level of boldness, there has to be a level of audacity and freedom that you give yourself to explore that new and to move forward in order to explore the unfamiliar territory, explore a new version of yourself that you've never been before, which is exciting because you get to become who you've always thought you were, who you are, and who you're called to be, but also fulfilling purpose as well in that, and coming into alignment with that as well. But what am I saying? As you flip the page, you have to have a level of courage and boldness, a freedom that you give yourself to explore the new. I know that typically there can be that fear of, I've never done this before. This is uncharted territory. I'm becoming someone who I don't know I really can be, or the world would accept. However, you know within yourself that this is what I'm ready for, as this last season has prepared you for that. So as you do so, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what is the new page that I'm turning to, and what does it look like for me? Number 2, what has the previous season or the previous page that I've been in, what has it taught me? What has it equipped me with? What has it prepared me to do in this new season? And number 3, what do I now have to offer the world? Going back to my example of the caterpillar and the butterfly, before the butterfly evolves, it looks completely different. And you have to also adopt that same mindset of, I also have to be in a constant state of evolution and elevation as well, which would require a level of courage, boldness, and a level of faith within yourself, or self-belief, knowing that as I burst out of this cocoon, this is who I've been called to be. This is the purpose I've been called to fulfill. And this next thing that I'm entering into is moving me closer to my personal goals. So as we flip the page, what is the first thing that we're going to do? Number 1, you will absolutely need to change and shift your idea of self, your self-perception, and the ideas that you have about yourself. For me, I know that I've gone through a process of removing limiting self-beliefs and even old ideas I had about myself, because that's no longer the person I am. And we have to deliberately go through that process of, similar to the caterpillar or the butterfly, you have to go through that process of shedding off old skin in order to reveal the new. Think about what are the old ideas you've had about yourself that are no longer relevant, that are actually not true and are not a true reflection of who you are. And maybe even what are some of the ideas and perceptions that other people have had of you that you've adopted as truth, which is actually not even true about yourself at all. And you may need to go through a process of unlearning, of undoing, which eventually becomes an unveiling of your true self. And again, that takes time. As we grow as people, there's a level of intentionality we have to have about this, particularly in how we think about ourselves, the ideas and the views, the beliefs that we have about ourselves, what we're capable of, what we're not capable of, your character, your ideas, what you value. All of those things, of course, shape who we are. But as we know, they shape how we act, they shape how we behave around other people and the things that we're able to accomplish. So that is going to be our first step in this season as you burst out of that cocoon or as you flip the page. So part of that intentionality is deliberately doing the internal work to adopt a new view, a new self-perception that aligns with who you are right now, with the person you've become and also the person you are becoming. Think about the butterfly. The butterfly no longer identifies itself as a caterpillar, even though that's what it was in a previous season. It doesn't describe itself, it doesn't align itself, it doesn't move in the same way it once acted or moved when it was a caterpillar, because that's no longer what it is now. So in the same way, we have to adopt that same mind frame and attitude within ourselves that, yes, there's an old me, there's an old version of me who did certain things or behaved in a particular way, who believed certain things. However, that no longer aligns with who I am right now. It no longer aligns with my purpose. It no longer aligns with who I've been called to be. Therefore, I now have a new way of thinking about myself and new belief systems about who I am, what I'm capable of, what I'm doing, and what my future holds. Something that we don't talk about enough or isn't fully explained to us maybe as we grow is that as human beings, you're in a constant state of evolution, in a constant state of change. So when we're not, and we always think about maybe the idols that we have, let's say for instance, we look at somebody like Jeff Bezos or somebody super successful, you never think about Jeff Bezos who was in school, or Jeff Bezos who was a student, Jeff Bezos who was just a starter entrepreneur, right? We always think about the final product, which then gives us a warped view and ideas that are actually not true about the way life works. You don't wake up and suddenly are the final full perfect person or product or your ideal self immediately, but it's a process. It's a day by day, month by month, year by year process of you growing, you evolving, you changing. And I think if we adopt that mindset of I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly changing, it gives you the freedom to not put so much pressure on yourself to suddenly wake up and be the millionaire, suddenly wake up with all the success that you wanted, suddenly wake up being the perfect wife, suddenly wake up being the perfect mother or the perfect son, being the perfect husband who's doing everything perfectly in his household. So as we adopt that mind frame of I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly growing, it lifts that weight off your shoulders and allows you to move through life with a freedom that brings peace to yourself as well, because you take that pressure off of yourself and allow yourself to grow slowly and surely. Which leads me on to number 2. The second key in this season of transition, or as you flip the page, is adopting a childlike attitude, which I think is my favorite key of the 6 that we have. And this is about adopting a childlike attitude that gives you freedom. If you think about a child, or if you think about a toddler, they are so carefree. They are curious about everything. They want to explore everything. They want to touch everything because they are growing and experiencing the world, experiencing who they are through the world that's around them. So what we can learn from that, which I absolutely love, is that if you ever watch a toddler, right, they are running around, they're touching everything, they are learning to walk. And as they learn to walk, they may take 2, 3, 4 steps and buckle, fall. They get back up, they try again. They may take a few more steps, they tumble and fall. But in that process, over time, within 2, 3, 4, 5 months, they build the strength and they build the confidence within themselves to develop that muscle and that confidence. Suddenly, they are walking. And then eventually they now start to learn to run. What am I saying? There's a way that children are able to adopt a courage, confidence, and a freedom that we as adults also need to have, in that I'm always learning, I'm always growing. As I was saying before, removing that pressure to suddenly be the perfect grown adult who's adulting perfectly. Right? If that's even a word, who's adulting perfectly, whose finances are perfect, whose career is perfect, whose relationships are perfect, but allowing yourself that freedom to learn, to grow, and to evolve at each stage, whether you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 years old, you're still learning and still growing and still becoming all that you are. So back to the childlike attitude I was talking about. When you adopt that attitude or that mindset, you're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to fall, and you're not afraid to do things for the first time. You give yourself the permission to try and walk for the first time and still maybe fall, but you get back up. But as adults, I think we're too calculated. We're too busy being calculated to even grow anymore. And it's such a dangerous place to be, because that hinders your elevation, it hinders your evolution, it hinders your growth, and it hinders where you're able to get to, because you put a limit on yourself. And it's not even the world that's put a limit on you. It's not society or the higher powers that be that have put a limit on you and what you can do, but rather you've put a limit on yourself because you've not given yourself that permission to grow and to fail, to do things for the first time, to maybe start the business for the first time, to whatever it is that you've put a limit to doing for the first time. Think about what is that thing that you've been wanting to do but have hindered yourself from, or stopped yourself from doing. So I think there's a level of fearlessness and maybe a dash of recklessness that children have that I think we also need to adopt, as we can learn from children. The more things you do for the first time, the more fearless you get, and the more things you're able to succeed in, because you gave yourself the permission to do it for the first time. So number 3 is review. So you're going to ask yourself, what is this new season I've stepped into, or this new page, requiring of me? Who does it require me to be, and what do I need to do in this season to better be prepared for that? For instance, whether this is you're transitioning for the first time from being single to married, or you're transitioning from not having children to being a parent for the first time ever. You're transitioning from being a student into being a working professional. Whatever the transition is, what are the things that you need to prepare yourself in mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in terms of skills? What are the things that you need to be doing right now to be well prepared and to just have a better experience within this season? And perhaps it requires you to be a version of you've never been before. It requires more from you, whether that is more time, more effort, more grit, more resilience, working harder, maybe working less. What does that require of you? Which leads me to number 4. Number 4 is let it go. Now, what do I mean by this? In order to embrace and accept the new that is before you, you have to let go of the old. It makes it more difficult to be in one season and embrace all that is before you, or the opportunities that are before you, or whatever that looks like for your situation. And it reminds me of the saying that says you can't have your cake cake and eat it too. You can't hold on to both seasons at the same time. It's almost as if you're trying to hold on to one thing here and hold on to another thing here. But in order to do the one thing well, you have to let go of the other. Think about if you had a physical book. I can't be reading one chapter and also reading another chapter at the same time. I have to set my gaze and I have to set my focus on one. So in order for me to enjoy all that this new page has for me, I have to be willing to close that page completely and not set my mind, my heart, my emotions, because it's possible that you could be in one season, but somehow you're still hanging on to the old things. So for the new things to flourish, whatever that looks like for you right now, for you to flourish in the new, you have to let go of the old, whether that is old mindsets, as we spoke about previously, sometimes even old relationships that are no longer serving who you are right now, or in some way are hindering your progress, stopping you from success, whatever that looks like. Letting go of old mentalities and old mindsets, that's also something that you would need to completely let go of in order to embrace the new that is before you. But I know that it's easy to want to stay in the familiar, do the comfortable, and do what you know, right? Because in that place you feel safe. However, following the path of least resistance or doing what is easy doesn't lead you to where you need to be. It doesn't allow you to grow into who you should be, who you are purposed to become. And it doesn't allow you to fulfill your purpose, which should be your main focus. And it's almost as if when you continue to hold on to the old, and mentally and even emotionally, there's a part of you where it's like you are swimming against the tide versus allowing the tide to take you in the new direction that your life is flowing into. So think about what are some things that you need to close the door on in order for you to focus on the new season and the new page and all it has for you right now. And remember, you're no longer the person that you once were. So it's okay to completely let it go. It's okay to transition out of and transition into whatever you are moving into, whether that is, it could be a season of entering into a new job, a new sector, entering into marriage, into motherhood, into parenthood, fatherhood, transitioning back into education. Whatever this season looks like for you, there has to be a letting go of the old in order to fully walk in the new and to excel, to also have joy whilst you're in that new transition period as well. Which leads me on to the next key that you're going to need for this season, which is embrace it. Embrace the change, embrace the uncomfortability of it all. As you grow or as you transition in our lives, typically change or shift is accompanied by uncomfortability and growing pains. And those growing pains may look like different things to different people. And that uncomfortability is also letting go of the old or letting go of what you're used to, letting go of what's comfortable for you, what feels safe, and entering into uncharted territory. As an adult, I mean, we always talk about adulting the right way on this platform, but there's also an element of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and doing the things that don't feel natural to you or feel like you almost have to fight yourself to enter into that or do that thing that you've always been afraid of, or the thing that scares you. And I can only think of extreme examples like jumping, like skydiving, but that's extreme. So whatever is scary to you, scary could be going back to school, scary could be transitioning into a new professional environment, a new sector that you've never explored before. Scary could be letting go of that relationship that you know is not great for you or serving you. And the truth is, if we are going to succeed in whatever we set our minds to, if we're going to fulfill purpose, if we are going to become who we want to become, we have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, with the growing pains of life, with the transitions, with the changes. And there's a level of adaptability and resilience that we have to adopt in those seasons of change and transition that we go through in life. And also, like, think about change or shift or growth becomes more uncomfortable the more you resist it, right? It's almost like you're swimming against the tide versus allowing the water to take you where you need to be or where your next chapter is. Which then leads us to our final one, is a mindset shift. And this is quite specific because this is about challenging yourself to do the hard things in this season. season. And this is a confession, I'm someone who typically doesn't like to do things that I find difficult or challenging or hard, because I like to do the things that I know that I'm good at this, I can succeed at this, and I don't want to do anything that I feel like I could potentially fail or feels uncomfortable to me. And difficult looks like different things to different people. So my challenge to you for this season is do the things that are hard. And hard looks like different things for different people in different seasons. Hard, as I said before, could be going back to education. Hard could be having a confronting or uncomfortable conversation with a loved one to address issues that have been there or have gone just sort of swept under the rug, or just facing your fears, whatever those fears have been in your life that have stopped you from doing certain things, or the fears that you've had concerning things that you've actually never even tried before. So think about what are those things that you have always assumed were difficult but actually never gave yourself the opportunity to try. This is the season to give yourself that opportunity to try the difficult things and to push yourself to be uncomfortable a little bit, because I know that at the end of uncomfortability is the start of growth and evolution and change in your lives, which starts with just the little things, just challenging yourself to do the little things. And I want to say we might have spoken about this in a previous season, but what I've come to see with myself, and I know this is true for other people, that when I challenge myself to do the things that I believe are hard or I am uncomfortable with, is that what it proves to me is that, oh, I can do it. And because I've done it once, it builds within you, it builds that confidence within yourself. But actually, I think when you stay in the comfortable zone, or when you stay in what you know, in doing what you know you're good at, in doing what you're used to doing, there is no growth there. So give yourself that opportunity to grow in what you believe is difficult, what you believe is challenging, and prove to yourself that you can do it. And that will just open up almost like a whole new world. I am one of those people who believes I'm a soft girl. I'm a soft life princess. I don't like to do things that are tough. However, I do believe that soft life also requires us to do the hard things, and to have, quote, a soft life, you have to do the things that you don't want to do, the things that are challenging, the things that are difficult to do, and the things that make you feel exposed, right? Because there's something about exposing yourself to potential failure, maybe potential rejection, or whatever you've imagined in your mind would be the outcome of doing something challenging. You know, when you're about to do something and you're sweating, you're like, oh gosh, how is this going to turn out? Maybe speaking in front of an audience for the first time. And you're so nervous, but the moment you do it and you succeed, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm still here. I didn't die. So like, I can do it again. And the more you grow that muscle, going back to the example that I gave earlier, talking about a toddler who does something for the first time, just adopting that childlike attitude of like fearlessness and recklessness as well. It gives you almost like kids have such a daredevil attitude, right? That I think is so cool. And as adults, I think there's a part of us that needs to go back to that attitude of, I can do anything. You know, have you ever seen a toddler like jump off a sofa and you're thinking, are you trying to break a leg? But there's something about that naivety and innocence that I think as adults we need to have, because you experience so much growth as a child when you look at the world as, oh, like the world is my oyster, nothing can go wrong. And obviously as adults, you start to grow fears and you become resistant to growth. You become resistant to challenges. You're always calculating the risks, which stops you from growing and elevating and experiencing the world in its fullness and allowing the world to experience you in the fullness of who you are. So I think in this season, we need to get back to that. And that is our 6 keys. So just for a quick review, we said in this season, it's about embracing it, embracing the change, embracing the uncomfortable. It's about adopting a childlike attitude. It is about reviewing what has the old season taught me and what am I entering into and who do I need to become. We also said, let go of the old. Let go of what no longer serves you, whether that is mindsets, whether that is environments that you've been in. And then the last one, which is also one of the most important ones, is a mindset shift, thinking about yourself in a different light, looking at yourself in a different light and embracing who you are now and letting go of old perceptions, old self-perceptions and ideas about yourself that are no longer true and are no longer relevant, because you really are in a new season, you're in a new page. So let me know, out of the 6 that we've mentioned, which ones spoke to you the most, which ones are you going to be adopting and taking on in this season? And also, what does your new page look like? What does you bursting out of that cocoon in this season look like for you? What does the new chapter entail for you? And who are you becoming? What are the things that you are letting go of? If you can share some of those, I would love to know. And regarding doing things that are difficult, challenge yourself to do the difficult things in this season. Challenge yourself to do the new. And remember, with that childlike attitude, there is just so much freedom that comes with it. The final addition that I have to all that we've discussed is that as adults, we're always in a, similar to the butterfly that we spoke about earlier, we're in a constant state of growth, of transition, of becoming. There's a level of excitement that comes with it that we also have to carry with us, and almost a hope and an expectation that even through the changes, the transitions, even in a new chapter, there's so much for us to experience. There's so much growth and elevation, transformation that is before us, that allows the world to experience us in the best way and allows us to offer the world more. As I said before, when the butterfly fully transforms and becomes what we then see, there's so much beauty that we look at it and like we're amazed. By the way, did you know that there's no 2 butterflies that are identical? Sorry, as I was preparing for this podcast, I learned so much about butterflies. My mind was blown. Similar to how there's no 2 people that have the same fingerprints. They may look the same, but they never have an identical pattern, colors, shapes. I was like, wow, it's beautiful. Anyway, as I was saying, we are in a constant state of becoming. We're always in the process and on the road to fulfilling our purpose and aligning to who I believe that each of us has a calling, has a purpose, has a place in the world that's been marked out for them. Through our journey of life is just a continuous journey of becoming that person and aligning to that place that has been prepared for us and just taking up space, which I believe is what this season is about. So let me know, meet me in the comment section below and let me know what are your thoughts. Share this with a friend who you know that is in the season that you know would really benefit from all we've discussed today. If you're new, do check out a previous episode. Join me on the next one by subscribing and I will catch you on the next one. Bye bye.